what's up, guys? Got another new video for you. This is Tuned in Sports, and in today's video, we got another NBA division breakdown slash prediction slash whatever you want to call it. And we're going to be getting into the Eastern Central Division. Last time we talked about the Eastern Atlantic, and today we're going to get into the Central. So, with that being said, we'll just go ahead and kick things right on off. We got a lot of teams to get into that we're excited to talk about, so let's go ahead and do it. First team that we're going to talk about is the Chicago Bulls. And obviously, you know, the Chicago Bulls, they got head coach from the Oklahoma City, which is my team, and Billy Donovan. And so he's now the head coach over there at the Bulls. And he's taken over a team that hasn't exactly had a lot of success over the last handful of years, basically since Derrick Rose left.
Yeah.
And interested to see how they do this year.
Definitely. I think Billy Donovan definitely elevates this team. I could see them definitely making it in at the 8th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe 7th. I don't know who would be 8th behind them, though. I don't think they're that much better than anybody that would be in the playoffs right now. In terms of teams that are on the outside looking in, I don't think they're all that much better than anybody in the East outside of maybe the Knicks and the Pistons right now, or maybe the Cavs. Those three teams are the main ones that I think they're a lot better than them. So, but to get into this team, I have them maybe making it in the 8th seed. They'll definitely be in the contention. But nonetheless, I really like how young this team is. I think bringing in a guy like Billy Donovan, really nice coach. They already got Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen. I'm a huge Lauri Markkanen fan. Also Zach LaVine fan. I think those two are really good players. They're pretty young, as well as Denzel Valentine. He's a really nice piece that's been playing really well for the Bulls since he's been there. So, I look for this team definitely to be a playoff contender. Not necessarily championship, but I think they'll at least make the playoffs. I think Billy Donovan will get them there.
Yeah, for me, I think they got a lot of work to do yet. I feel like they got some nice pieces. One guy that you didn't mention that I feel has really done a good job on this team is Thomas Satoransky. I feel like he's a good piece.
Yeah.
And thus far in the preseason, he's actually, I've been pretty impressed by what I've seen of him thus far, and I think he's going to really fit in well with his team. I think he came over from Philadelphia or something, or Milwaukee, or I'm pretty sure he came over from another team, but regardless.
No, Satoransky's been there.
Oh, okay. Well, regardless, I think he's really going to play well. I'm pretty sure he came over from somewhere else. But regardless, he's a good player. He's a really good player, and I think he'll fit in well on this team. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do. I feel like they can only go up. The last handful of seasons have been pretty miserable for them. But, again, I like Lauri Markkanen. I like Zach LaVine, just like he said. Obviously, Billy Donovan knows what the hell he's doing. And I think he's going to have these guys playing better than they have in the last handful of seasons. I, however, am a little bit hesitant to say he's going to be the difference between them making the playoffs and not. I'm not saying they have zero chance to make the playoffs. I just think I would put some other teams probably ahead of them because I think there's going to be some teams that are in there this year that weren't last year, which I believe Washington as well as Atlanta are going to be a lot tougher this year, and I don't see them being better than them, as well as I think the other 6 seeds are already taken care of.
Yeah, like I said though, what I'm saying is if I don't know exactly if they're gonna make the playoffs, but if they do, I see them being the 8th seed. That's what I know. To come off.
But okay, well, what I'm saying is I don't see them better than 7 other teams in the league. Because again, like I said, we already talked about in the last video how I believe there's the top 6. And then Brooklyn's better. And then I feel like if you include all the teams except the Knicks in the Atlantic, and then you include Milwaukee, who we're going to talk about in this video, and the Heat, you have those 6, and then Washington is going to be in this year, I believe, as well as Atlanta has gotten a lot better over the offseason. I don't see the Bulls better than the Hawks or the Wizards, and I definitely don't see them better than anybody else that we've already talked about, or the Heat or the Bucks. So I just don't see how they get in unless one of those teams takes some serious hits and injuries. I don't see them getting in. But with that being said, that does not mean that they can't make good strides in the right direction. And I think getting Billy Donovan to come there is the first step.
Yeah, but even if they don't make it, I definitely like the direction.
Yeah, I think they're getting better. They're definitely getting better.
Like I said, huge Zach LaVine fan, and also Lauri Markkanen. Those guys can be staples for that franchise going forward for sure, and they should be 2 guys that they need to be making an effort to keep around and build around. Mm-hmm. If I don't know necessarily that Zach LaVine can win you a championship alone, and that's why I mentioned Lauri Markkanen needs to be around. Because Lauri Markkanen, I feel, is a really underrated player, and I think he very easily could become one of the best power forwards in this league. Yeah. And I think he already is that. If you ask me, in terms of younger players, he's definitely one of the best. And they've already
been amassing some young players too through drafts because their last couple seasons haven't been very good. Like you said, Valentine and some different people. So I look for this team to get better. I just don't think it's happening this year. But also you got to take into account, I'm not sure this is the full roster. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not too far out, if you don't see this being a team that maybe makes some trades, because I don't think they have anything to lose right now.
Yeah, another player that we forgot to mention that they brought in was Noah Vonley. I think Noah Vonley is a pretty solid, rotational player. He was on the Knicks. Granted, the Knicks never really did anything with him. But on a team that, in my opinion, isn't all that far away from being pretty damn good, he could be a really nice fit.
Well,
and also the Bulls team is a really good example of that, in my opinion.
Well, also the other thing is speaking of, I happened to watch the majority of one of their preseason games that they had. I believe it was the first one. And another guy that really impressed me on this specific team was Chandler Hutchinson. That guy was really balling out when I was watching.
And they got Kobe White still. I completely forgot to mention him. Granted, he didn't look very good in the preseason, from what I've seen of him so far, wasn't really.
And they got Otto Porter, too.
But
Otto's a decent shooter and stuff. So
yeah, but I mean, Kobe White actually played pretty well last year in the regular season. So I look for him to improve. He's a young player. I think this Bulls team, will only improve as time goes.
Yeah.
I
just think that
they just need to get a little bit older.
I think they're too far out to do anything this season. Like I said, a couple injuries, maybe they could sneak into the 8th seed or something. But even if they sneak into the playoffs, I see them being a first-round exit, unfortunately. But, I mean, again, it's a new team, new coach, and I think the goal is not necessarily to make noise this year. I think it's to build for the future, and I think they've got pieces in place.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and
Get into
hop
Milwaukee.
into a team that is not in the rebuilding stage. Well, at least shouldn't be in the rebuilding stage. It's going to be kind of dependent on what happens with Antetokounmpo, because he has not signed an extension yet. Now, granted, it does sound like he's probably going to be staying around, but you just don't know. Until he puts the pen to the paper, anything could happen. So, this team's going to be kind of interesting to me because I like the Drew Holiday pickup, but I also feel like they gave up too much for him. They gave up Eric Bledsoe, who in my opinion was a pretty damn good player in his own right.
And George Hill, who was a solid point guard off the bench for him.
Yeah, so it's gonna be. I mean, I don't know who the heck is their starting. I mean, their backup point guard right now. DJ Augustine.
Well,
it's
they got
DJ Augustine,
but they also got Pat Connaughton, isn't he? He's a 2.
Yeah,
I think.
Pat Connaughton's been on the team for a little while.
But he wasn't a backup point guard last year? He
was a backup,
but he was a 2.
Yeah, but I really like DJ Augustine. I think he's an underrated player. He played huge against the Raptors in
the Orlando series.
Yeah, in the Orlando series, knocked down the game-winning 3 for Game 1 against the Raptors in that series. So I think he's a nice backup for this team.
Yeah.
And I think he's a pretty suitable replacement for George Hill, as he was mentioning. George Hill got traded to the Thunder. But I don't really see this Bulls team, not Bulls, Bucks team really taking a step back. I think they could be, I think they're going to take a step back a little bit. Maybe a couple seeds. But I still think they're going to be pretty damn good.
Okay. For me, I feel like... I've been a little bit critical of the way that they've went about doing certain things. But at the end of the day, I feel like when I look at this roster from top to bottom, I really believe that they have as much chance to win it all as they had last year, if not a little bit better. I believe overall they are a better team right now.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of really, really, really good teams. And especially this year, like I said, let's just say for a minute, not in any particular order, but these are the 8 playoff teams right now. Let's just say, okay? You have Milwaukee, you have the Heat, you have the 76ers, you have the Celtics, you have the Raptors, you have the Nets, you have the Wizards, and you have the
Hawks.
The Hawks. Now, maybe the Hawks, but even the Hawks, I don't think so, because with the Hawks, I feel like they'll probably be the 8th seed if they get in. But let's just say those are the 8 teams. Who of those teams, unless they get the 1 seed and end up facing the Hawks, or the Wizards, which either of those I'm not saying is an easy win. But the rest of those matchups, I don't think any of those. I think the top 6, let's just say the bottom 2 are the Wizards and the Hawks. Those other 6 teams, I think, are all very close. So if they don't get 1 or 2 and they have to take on one of those teams in the first round, it's going to be tough. And I truly believe that the East is starting to really get a lot better overall, as opposed to just a couple of teams.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I do believe the Raptors, like we talked about in another video, I don't believe that the Raptors are going to be a 2 seed again this year. But with that being said, there's so many really good teams and so many teams that have just gotten better. And I do believe the Bucks have gotten better, but it's marginally better. And if that wasn't enough to get them out of the second round last year, I'm just afraid that it's not going to be, the moves they've made are not going to be enough to take them over the top again this year. And the biggest reason why I feel like that is because their best player is not a reliable scorer on offense, at least shooting wise. And I feel like it's kind of like the Lamar Jackson type of thing in basketball or in football, where he's really good at something, but if you can exploit his weakness, then you can do well. And I feel like that's Giannis in basketball right now. But the other thing is that he is only going to progress, and don't think for a minute that he doesn't know what his weakness is. Even last year compared to the year before, he shot the ball way better. He was a much better shooter last year than he was the year before.
Yeah.
So let's not kid ourselves in saying that he's just set to be this guy that can't shoot it from outside of the key and is a great defender and stuff. He is getting better, but I just don't know if where he's at right now is enough to carry this team on his own. Now, he has help. He does have help, and I feel like the Bucks from top to bottom are actually one of the deepest teams with one of the better benches in the league. I truly believe that. But the problem with them is that I don't feel like they have the starting lineup to complement it. Like, for instance, the thing that I would set apart with them and let's say the Lakers, I feel like they're just as deep as the Lakers are. If you go bench-wise, player to player, I feel like they're just as deep. They've got depth, they've got scorers, they've got defenders, and they've got stars. However, I feel like their overall starting unit is not as good as the Lakers. On top of the fact that Giannis, one of their best players, is not a reliable 40, you don't necessarily go into a game expecting Giannis to get 40 points. He might, but he could also get 15. Whereas you look at the Lakers, Anthony Davis is probably going to get 30 or at least 20 plus. LeBron, same thing. And Giannis, that's not always the case. Sometimes he has rough games shooting. And then you got Chris Middleton, but I'm just saying in terms of depth, I feel like they're as good as anybody in terms of depth. However, I just don't know if their starting five is enough to really take the cake.
So
okay, it's kind of difficult.
So let's go ahead and examine. So what do you think would be the starting five for this Bucks team? Sorry, I keep on saying Bulls because we just got done talking about them.
Well, I don't really know. I mean, they've got some good pieces. Obviously, you got to have Giannis and probably DJ Augustine.
No, Drew Holiday's.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, Drew Holiday. And obviously, you got Drew Holiday,
Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and then probably
who they put at the other position is kind of up to them. Maybe Kyle Korver's getting a little up there, so I don't think it would be him. But I'm just saying, depth-wise, though, I think they can compete. But the issue is going to be, I don't know if that starting five. I mean, Brook Lopez is a really good player in his own right, but I think
it would be Connaughton.
Probably Pat Connaughton, yeah. So, I mean, that's a solid starting five, but I just don't think that's a great starting five. And I think they're going to need to be great to surpass. But we spent a ton of time on this team already. Let's move on to the next one, you think?
Yeah, let's go ahead and head into the Cavaliers.
Yeah, so what are you thinking about Cleveland here?
Honestly, my feelings on them are kind of mixed, I would say. I think they have a team that could potentially, going forward, be pretty decent. I mean, they got Drummond for on a contract now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they signed him.
Yeah, they signed him to a contract. They still got, Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, both those guys.
Kevin Love is still in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, they got those guys. And then I look at the rest of the roster. They just brought in JaVale McGee, which, in my opinion, will be a nice fit for that bench unit behind Andre Drummond. So, I don't feel like they've really gotten worse by any means. I'm pretty sure they still got Larry Nance as well.
Yeah, they do.
So, you know what? I don't think this team is really that far.
And they got Osman too.
Yeah. So
Cecil Osman or whatever his name is.
But nonetheless, I really like what this team's doing. I mean, I think JaVale McGee, he definitely an underrated player, and he will be a nice bench player for this team behind Drummond, like I said before. Yeah. I really like what this ownership is doing with Cleveland. Granted, after LeBron left, they really took a huge spill. But I think they're getting back on track with, these young players that they got. Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, and they also... Didn't they trade Porter Jr.? I think they traded Porter Jr.
Otto Porter?
Yeah, I think he's on the Bulls now.
Yeah, he's on the Bulls.
So, but nonetheless...
But, I mean, they also got Thon Maker. He's over from the Pistons. As well as, what's his name? Sheldon Mack.
And they re-signed Dellavedova. So, I like what this team's doing.
And then you include their draft pick as well. I can't remember who they drafted, but regardless, I feel like you look at the roster and they're not bad. I mean, they got some players. The biggest problem is there's just a lot of good teams in the East.
Yeah, exactly.
It hasn't always been that way, but now it's getting to be. I feel like it's starting to get a lot better, and I just don't. Again, like we talked about with the Bulls, I don't know who I would take out of there and put Cleveland in. If anybody, I would say the Hawks is the only team that I would say is like, okay, you could maybe replace the Hawks with somebody else. But everybody else, looking at their roster, the way it is constructed right now, pre-injuries, I don't see. I couldn't see putting Cleveland in ahead of anybody. But I don't think that's the goal for the season. I don't think it's like playoffs or bust right now. I think if they were to happen to get into the playoffs, that would be a miracle for them. But I don't see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I mean, in my opinion, Bulls and Cavaliers, in my opinion, both have a pretty bright future. I like what both those teams are doing with the young talent that they're bringing in, as well as the talent that isn't on necessarily the young side that they already have with Drummond and Kevin Love.
And
those are good pieces to build around.
Yeah, and then another team which I guess we'll just go ahead and use that to transition to the next team, which is the Indiana Pacers. Indiana, they're a weird team, but I believe that they are a team like we talked about with the Bulls, with Cleveland. I, for the most part, like what they're doing. I mean, they got Bogdanovich, right?
No. Wait, no.
Yeah, they have. I thought they had a Bogdanovich brother on their team.
Well, they had, but he's on Jazz now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, I like
what they got, though.
I like Malcolm Brogdon, obviously. What's his name is a great player. Oladipo. I wish he would have been a great player when he was on the Thunder, but nonetheless, if he can stay healthy, he's a good player. Jeremy Lamb. I feel like last season, they could have been a team to mess with or to deal with in the postseason if everybody would have been playing. But they didn't have Jeremy Lamb and a number of other people. But, here again, you look at the roster of this team, Miles Turner, he's a big been playing really well, especially last season. He played great. And Sabonis, there's another guy. He didn't even play in the bubble, and he was a big piece for them. Another ex-Thunder guy. We drafted him, but regardless, I mean, they have a lot of good players. And with that being said, I mean, they're a team that consistently is in the playoffs, but consistently doesn't really do anything. But I don't think that's always going to be the case because I think they have a lot of solid pieces. And as a matter of fact, I think this team probably will beat out the Hawks. It's going to be close. I would say probably between them and the Hawks would be who I would pick for the 7th, 8th. Them, the Hawks, and the Warriors. I mean, the Wizards are probably the three teams that I have battling it out for 7th, 8th, and 9th. But it's going to be tight. But, I mean, I feel like the Pacers are an example of a team where everybody else is getting better and better and better. And I feel like the Pacers are just getting left behind a little bit.
Yeah,
because they don't really have, like, their stars. They have Oladipo, who I wouldn't even put him necessarily as a star. I think he's just under that. And then they have a lot of really good role players. And I would say they kind of remind me of Toronto. They have just a lot of really good players, but then they also have a new coach coming in this year. And that is why I would put them a little bit lower than I normally would. Because I think Nate McMillan did a great job with that team. And I really think he deserves a coaching job somewhere else. And I'm not talking about a backup or an assistant. That guy deserves to be a head coach somewhere. He did an excellent job with his team. Yeah. We'll see what the new guy, where he takes them and stuff. But as a result of all that, I think they're still going to be competitive. I think they'll be tough. But I think, like I said, they'll be in a battle with, in my opinion, the Wizards, the Hawks, and the Pacers will be the three teams battling for the 7th, 8th, and 9th position. Now, with that being said, if for instance the Pacers were to get in at either 7 or 8, they're not going to be an easy out. If they're at full strength, they will not be an easy out. Anybody that has to face them, good luck to you. I'm not saying that they're going to win, but don't be surprised if they could take a series to 6 or 7 games against the Celtics or somebody. I could see it. I truly believe. I mean, they put up a fight last year somewhat, and they should have been better. Like I said, if they were at full strength last year, I think they would have been hell to deal with. Mm-hmm. But they weren't. But that was COVID and everything else. And that's the other thing about this, is on top of injuries, you also got to think, well, is everybody going to be available, or is there going to be COVID going on come playoff time?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Could people be missing games due to COVID and being forced to quarantine for 14 days? Well, if the team has games, if the team has a playoff series, it doesn't take 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if, like, let's say, a player like Giannis were to catch COVID come playoff time and he missed the whole series, that could drastically change things.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But I think the Pacers are solid. I think they're good. And I think that they have done a really good job at just being consistently good. But I don't see them as a team that is going to take the next step unless they start getting some top tier players. But with them being consistent and good all the time, I feel like it's going to be really... The biggest problem is it's going to be really hard to convince somebody like a Kawhi Leonard or a LeBron or Kawhi or... well, I already said Kawhi, but... one of those caliber players to say, I'm taking my talents to Indiana. It's going to be really hard to attract free agents because it's Indiana. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay.
No thanks.
Just
think about this for a second, though. Okay, so let's say, Paul George, because actually the Pacers were the ones that drafted Kawhi Leonard and also Paul George. They drafted both those guys, but traded Kawhi Leonard to the Spurs.
Oh, okay.
So let's say both those guys were still on the team. Just imagine, like, how different things would be.
Yeah. The Pacers, I mean, they've proven that they can put a team together, and if they have a star like Paul George, I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and almost beat the Cavs, the LeBron and the Cavs years ago.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, if they had Paul George still, and you put him with this roster they have right now, they're a really dangerous team.
Honestly, like, I even think you put, like, a D'Angelo Russell on this team, they are... But, I mean, in some respects, I feel like that's Oladipo. I mean, so I feel like that kind of cancels each other out a little bit. But let's say you put Devin Booker from the Suns on this team. Boom. They're serious. I mean, you put a player that is just a really good player, and you put him on this team to kind of opposite Oladipo a little bit, I guess. And he's more of like a, maybe not quite an all-star, but upper caliber point guard or small forward or even a forward or a center. I think that drastically changes this team and could turn them from okay to really good really quick. But with the current roster, though, I see them struggling this year.
Yeah, me personally, I think I would probably put the Hawks and the Wizards over them. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would put the Wizards over them for sure. I think them and the Hawks will battle, but I would put them over the Hawks. But regardless, I mean,
it doesn't matter.
No, regardless, I think they're good though. Like the Pacers are nothing to sneeze at. I just don't know how they're gonna be. Let's put it this way. I definitely don't see them being the 4 seed that they were last year.
No.
amongst these teams, I think, like I said, a lot of teams have gotten a hell of a lot better, and I don't think that they've gotten a hell of a lot better. I think they kind of stayed where they were.
Yeah, I mean, they lost Wesley Matthews and a couple of others, so it's going to be interesting to see how they look, but let's get into the last team on this list.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get into the Pistons.
Yeah.
This team definitely is in a rebuilding stage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of interested to see kind of what this team's going to be, though. Because you got to figure, they got 3 first-round draft picks coming in this season.
Yep.
Still have Blake Griffin. Still have D. Rose. D. Rose can help, a guy like Killian Hayes, for example, who they drafted, who's a guard.
And you got...
They're going to help it. He's going to be able to help bring those players up.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but you got the guys that they drafted, Bay and those other couple. And then on top of that, they signed LiAngelo Ball as well. So
I don't know how true this is, but I think they waived him. They waived LiAngelo.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think that's what I've read. I don't know necessarily how true it is because I saw somebody post that LiAngelo got waived from the Pistons, and I was like, that's kind of odd because they literally. It feels like they just brought him in, so I don't know.
Well, and it's also kind of odd because I was hearing a lot of people saying that that they thought he was going to be the best of the 3 Ball brothers. I was hearing a lot of people talking super highly of him. So, I don't know. But regardless, I mean, what we're looking at here still shows him on the roster. But regardless, I mean, they got a lot of people... New guys. They got Jeremy Grant, too, from Denver. And also another guy, past OKC, from the OKC Thunder. And then, they got Mason Plumlee came over as well. And then, like he said, Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, some of these guys. They no longer have Reggie Jackson. He's obviously on the Clippers now. But I feel like, it's really difficult. Because, again, this is really the same thing with the Bulls and even with the Pacers. Same thing with the Knicks and the Cavs even also.
Yep.
Like we've talked about, is that there are just, especially this year, I'm talking about this year alone, there are so many competitive teams in the East right now, I feel, that they just, the Pistons can get better and still be... miles away from actually doing anything.
Yeah, another player that they brought in that I'm really interested to see how he's going to be is actually a guy from overseas. Davidas Servitas or whatever his name is. They brought him in from overseas. He's a point guard, I think.
Yes,
but
but
nonetheless, I think they signed him to a 3-year deal. But man, when I was watching him play, he looks like he's got the goods. That guy can shoot. He's a good ball handler, good passer. Man, I'm really interested to see how he's going to be. Now, granted, I don't know exactly how, what their plans are because, they still have, Derrick Rose there. and also drafted another point guard in Killian Hayes.
Yeah,
so,
Killian Hayes.
I don't know.
But they're very young, and so, I mean, I don't think they're expecting to do much this year. No. But, again, I mean, like I said, even if they were to get better...
Wait, actually, Servaitis is a small forward.
Servaitis. I think his name is Servaitis.
He's a small forward. I don't know.
Yeah, but regardless, I mean, I feel like they're just a team that could drastically improve from last season and still not do anything. Because I just feel like everybody else is just that much better. And I feel like the Pistons just, if anything, they made a lot of lateral moves. However, what I will say is now that they got the assistant guy from the Thunder over there, already I'm seeing them actually seeming to do things that make some sense. And they are a team with direction right now. And I believe in the next handful of years, they're going to get better. This year's going to be rough, but they are getting better. They're on an upward trend. But like I said, it's difficult because we say that about just about every team. We've said that about just about all of them so far.
Yeah,
but the difference, but there's only 8 teams allowed in the freaking playoffs. So
yeah,
I feel like the NBA as a whole is getting a lot more competitive.
Yeah,
in terms of like number of teams that are solid, especially in the East, because it was usually like, okay, you got all these good teams in the West, and then the 7th and 8th seed teams in the East wouldn't even maybe have a winning record, and it's like, wow, okay, and then you'd see the 9th seed in the West have a winning record, but they didn't get in the playoffs because there was only 8 teams. But then you see the East with a couple teams that made the playoffs that didn't even have a winning record.
Yeah, you know.
So, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case anymore because, like I said, I believe that the East has gotten better overall, and I truly believe that the Pistons could be another example of a team that is getting better, but it's difficult. And I feel like this year is going to be tough for them.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
We'll see. I mean, if these draft picks and rookies and stuff and young players that they have turn out to be good players, they could easily compete. Because I mean, when you have 3 or 4 draft picks that they had this year in the first round, those guys could turn out to be studs. And you're looking at the next big 3. Who knows? I mean, it could turn around just that quick. So I'm anxious to see what happens, what the Pistons look like, what their young players look like. But unfortunately, this year's going to be rough for them. But I don't think that's unexpected. I think right now they're rebuilding, and that's exactly what they're doing. It's just good to see them with direction. So with that being said, let's do the final little bit here. How many teams do you think are making the playoffs, and who's going to be the best team? I think who's going to be the best team is probably pretty obvious, Cleveland, but how many teams do you think? Who's going to be the best team in your opinion, and how many teams from this division are making the playoffs?
Best team, obviously, the Pistons. Just play. Bucks. And out of this division, I only see one team making it.
One team, huh?
Which is the Bucks.
Okay. I'm gonna say obviously best team, Bucks. I'm gonna say 2. I'm gonna say Milwaukee and Indiana are gonna make the playoffs in this division.
Okay. Well, I mean, like we said, I mean, it's ultimately gonna be a fight between Hawks, Indiana, and who was the third one? Washington, yeah.
I see. For me, I think it's more of a fight between the Hawks and the Pacers because I don't think Washington is gonna miss the playoffs.
No,
unless people get hurt, which could happen.
But okay,
or COVID. But with that being said, guys, if you like the video, make sure you hit the like button. subscribe, and all that other fun stuff. We're having a great time doing this series, and that was the Eastern Central Division, yes. In the next video, we're going to be getting into the Western Conference again.
Yeah,
and that video will be coming out to you guys tomorrow at the time of this recording. Like I said at the beginning of the last video, we're going to try to get these videos all out to you on the same week. So, you'll have a video coming out every day for each one. So make sure you guys stay tuned. If you haven't checked out the first couple videos we did in this series, check those out and stay tuned for the rest of them. But, with that being said, we'll cap out the video here. I'm Bryson.
I'm Bennett.
See you guys in the next video.